Okay, so good morning. We're still in the workbook of A Course in Miracles, and it is a review lesson of lessons number 63 and lessons number 64, and it's lesson number 82 in and of itself. Um, it's interesting, there's an interesting line when I read this. First, we'll read the light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. And 64, let me not forget my function. So it's an interesting line, which really sort of does go to the idea of let's call it, the whole and perfect and singular totality of what reality is when he says, my forgiveness is the means by which the light of the world finds expression through me. So obviously, there's an idea there that there's the light of the world is a single, whole, perfect light, and that through our own individual forgiveness, as we learn to forgive ourselves and utilize the function of forgiveness that's been gifted us by God, so that we would never truly be separate and could find out the truth about ourselves in any given instant. Obviously, this is saying it is much like I sometimes use the metaphor of consciousness or how we are, the metaphor of being a diamond, and each one of us is a facet on the diamond that learns to express the light and the love of our reality through the specificity of the seeming entity we're using in the world of space and time to play the role that we're playing and to fulfill our function as we play that role. And so I find, we're all facets on this single diamond, this single light. And, desire, in the errant desire for a consciousness of separation, we find the ability for that consciousness to experience a correction, yet be used exactly the way he seemed to have conceived himself, as a factoring of the error, as a factoring of separation. So in a sense, no sacrifice is being asked for at all. You're not even asked to sacrifice your body. You're just asked to sacrifice everything you've thought about the purpose of what your body is, the purpose of what this world is, and the purpose that you're in this world or seem to be in this world for. And all those come about through the utilization of forgiveness. And again, I talk about this often because I think it's necessary. One of the shifts in consciousness, one of the changes in our mind that we must go through and look directly at some point in time, has to do with the idea in the human mind, and when we're identified with the ego, that forgiveness is necessary because of something that has gone wrong. Like forgiveness associates with the guilt and the fear and the mistake, rather than forgiveness being a direct result of God's love for us and his unwillingness to have us ever be separate, and the inability for that to ever be so. So forgiveness is a gift that we've received from God, not because we're guilty, because of the love that we are and the love that he wants to extend and share through us. He wants the expression of this one light to be able to find home within us, because we are the home of that expression of the one light, and allow that which we are to utilize it to show you that it was never anything. It wasn't the body, it wasn't the world, nothing at all had actually prevented it except an idea in your own mind that must be forgiven, must be seen differently because of who you are and because of who you're created by. So I think it's important to break the association of forgiveness with guilt and fear and understand that forgiveness is a function of love, which, when utilized, eliminates the ability to be either fearful or guilty. Now, the degree to which you could include the factoring of your own guilt and fear into an instant of forgiveness is the breadth, literally the breadth, the width, the area within your own healing that instant of forgiveness can cover. So the time that it seems to take bears no relationship to the time that forgiveness encompasses and undoes your guilt and fear. And there are instances, and that's what Jesus talks about in Revelation, where obviously your mind is utilizing the same action, forgiveness, to not defend against God revealing himself to you. And in that instance, you lose all fear and all guilt temporarily for as long as you're capable of standing in that instant. Yet when you come back, you're entirely different. And the recognition of what occurred to you in that instant can certainly be used as motivation to forgive, because you find out that things are a hell of a lot different, or a heaven of a lot different, than what you've been thinking that it is. In that instant, you lose the ability to think God is going to punish you, because you see God's only love, and therefore so am I, and so are you. And what would love punish itself for when nothing has gone wrong? So the cost of forgiveness is a shift in your own mind, is a change in your own mind about who you are in its entirety. And we can string that out in time, as long as we can string time out in and of itself, until finally there's a whole action in your mind that shows you the totality, or reveals the totality to you, and then you live to the integration of what you've been realized as, so that heaven and earth no longer do exist as separate states in your mind, because nothing, quite frankly, nothing is separate from you, nor are you separate from anything. Now, in that sense, you're not separate from the illusion of space and time any more than you're separate from reality. Just that the illusion of space and time has no reality for you to actually be separate from. And yet, because of the fact that you're not separate and you're the maker of the consciousness of separation, your connection to it, which has been fearful and fraught with guilt, becomes one of extending love, because it is what you are. When your nature is recognized as being wholly love and wholly lovable, and you're in the activity of that certainty in your own understanding, then everything you do gets the benefit of the extension of the love that you are, which is what we're ultimately looking for to do. That's what this is saying. My forgiveness is the means by which the light of the world finds expression through me. My forgiveness is the means by which I become aware of the light of the world in me. My forgiveness is the means by which the world is healed together with myself. The world is healed together with yourself, because there is no separation between you and the world. It's one and the same illusion. It's one and the same function of one and the same error. And as that error becomes forgiven in your own mind, you no longer have the ability to enact separation on the consciousness that previously was being utilized as an expression of separation. It now becomes an expression of your acceptance of what forgiveness holds for you, and the ability, much as you projected the separation, you begin to project the extension of love as your reality, and the world is lit up with that love that you are extending and projecting. Let peace extend from my mind to yours. And you supply the name whose mind you would like your peace to extend to. I share the light of the world with you. And you name the person with whom you'd like to share that light with. Through my forgiveness, I can see this as it is. So this is a good way to apply Jesus's hopes that you will come to love your neighbor as yourself, and love your enemies as yourself as well. And he uses the idea of if you just love those who you already love, there's no increase of love within your own loving kingdom. But if you love those who you previously excluded from it through the act, through your thoughts that you hate them, and the attempt to eliminate them from having existence in your consciousness, if you can learn to extend love to those who were previously your enemy, look at how everything rejoices in your own loving kingdom, because more love is added and it increases. Hate prevents, is the stoppage, is a block, is a blockage that doesn't allow your love, your light to extend. It can't extend past the hate. And therefore, what you hate becomes the limitation, the boundary of your ability for your kingdom to extend endlessly, eternally. Now, I'm not talking about the world of space and time so much as understanding that if you're under no laws but God's, then the laws of space and time cannot not but respond to the use of your mind. When you utilize the law of God, the laws of the kingdom, cannot not likewise have effects within your perception of what's occurring in space and time. And that's how you stop being afraid of yourself and afraid of your own power, afraid of love specifically. That's how you stop and you lose your fear of love, and you begin to love your own expression of love. You love yourself, and you can love your neighbors as you love yourself. It's the same manner. It's the same action of mind. It's the extension of God's love, accepted by you as received by him, and given to you for the purpose that he utilized it for himself, which was to extend love to you and create you. Now it's your turn in that instant, in that healing. And the way you demonstrate your readiness to utilize this in a total way is by the inclusion of your enemy in the extension of love that you're afforded as you remember who you are and you remember who your brother is. No one is excluded from the kingdom except by your desire to exclude someone. And in the desire to exclude someone, you attempt to turn the kingdom into what it can never be, is the problem. It's not that you split the kingdom. You attempt to have something that is unlike reality, so therefore can only exist as an image or an idea in your mind, based as, and maybe you could see this clearly, based as a reflection off that image, because your extension can't go past that instant of hate. So that instant of hate becomes what is your love is reflected, what your consciousness, the power of your mind reflects off and comes back to you. That's the projection that results in a perception having resulted in the projection of your mind to the point where it's limited in its ability to extend, so it bounces back, and now you're living in consciousness where the first split was introduced in the consciousness where you began to observe yourself. Now you're observing yourself in the condition of holding a grievance and getting reflection of your own truth in a condition unlike reality, which is what the dream is, and that's how the dream is made. The healing of that certainly would come where you no longer stop. In another lesson, Jesus refers to it as vision. You no longer stop your vision, but you see that it's the reflection that you're getting that's causing you to think unlike your creative nature truly thinks and extends. And as you forgive yourself for making that mistake, you no longer use that which you called the other, the block, to bounce off, and you could just extend right through the action of including him in what you're extending the love to. That's the nature of the kingdom. There's no reflective capacity in the kingdom. You don't reflect upon yourself. I mean, when you awaken in the kingdom, you don't question how, if, when, where, or why you're awake. It's a recognition of an eternal state. Here we still look for proof. And the proof comes in the application of the laws of the kingdom in the world of space and time, as we demonstrate through the healing of our own mind and the purification that takes place. Because you're not going to be able to use the power that you're being restored to unless your mind is pure and is being healed, is being purified, is going through a process of purification. Otherwise, you would just continue to do exactly what you've always done, and it would have no reparative capacity, which is what it is we're looking for here in space and time. So those are today's lessons. Let me not forget my function. And also, Jesus, he's the master of everything. He's master of space and time. He tells you that, tells you in the book, that he actually has control over space and time. And when you begin to read these lessons, and when you begin to read them, not as in the drudgery of it being a discipline, but in the recognition that your mind is being freed from the drudgery, so you're seeing things much more lightly, much more happily, and much more readily as they actually are. You'll notice Jesus' use of the cadence, of the rhythm, of the language, and the alliteration that comes in all these. Let me not forget my function. I would not forget my function because I would rather remember myself. I cannot fulfill my function by forgetting. And unless I fulfill my function, I will not experience the joy that God intends for me. It's like there's a cadence, there's a rhyme and a rhythm to all this. And Jesus put this together in a particular way to help us understand and learn in the most simple way, the way possible. It's much like utilizing the cadence of nursery rhymes for adults, for people who think that their intellect has some value, and they've overridden being a child by the necessity to exist in the world of space and time through intellectual pursuits. When you read this, you see the mastery that Jesus has in his ability to use the English language to convey constantly the same meaning over and over again, utilizing sort of slightly different formulations of words to express the one single truth that is beyond words whatsoever. But in the listening, within the listening to the words, when you finally listen to the words, not just read the words, when you listen to the words that you're reading within your own heart and mind, they begin to allow you to attune. You begin to be able to hear from the sound through the application of all your senses into the single function that you've been given. You begin to be able to hear the sound. And what you hear is an indication of what we read yesterday. There's a lesson here for you. There's a message for each and every one of us as we do this. As we do this, we all receive a message because our consciousness has been loosened and the light is coming through. And now we can get messages from home as to how we can fulfill our function and complete the procedure that will allow us to no longer require spatial and temporal identities as a way of knowing ourselves and as a way of knowing each other and communicating and being in love. So that's a little bit about what this has been about for me today. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.